Hi everyone, welcome back to another video tutorial about Python. Today we're going to expand our knowledge about Python by learning about Booleans and logical operators. A Boolean, also known in programming as a logical expression, evaluates to one of two states. It's either true or false. So true or false. And its name is derived from George Boole. He was a 19th century mathematician amongst others, and his work on mathematical logic laid out some of the foundations of the digital revolution that came in the 20th century. And in Python, and not only, Booleans are used to represent truth values, and we have already seen some true and false examples from previous tutorials, so I reckon you should be a bit familiar with them by now. Now let's go to the Python shell and let's evaluate some expressions. Right, so let's evaluate the truth values of the following. So let's start with numbers. 3 equals to 3, and this returns true because 3 equals 3. Now if we do 3 equals 5, this should return false, and it does. Now let's evaluate some strings. Let's say YouTube equals YouTube, and this should return true, and it does. Now if we do YouTube equals YouTube but with the capital Y, this should return false because if you remember from previous tutorials, Python is case sensitive. So these two strings, they're separate strings but they're not equal to each other. Now we can test something like 5 smaller than 10, and this returns true. So I think this is quite intuitive. You can do your own testing for numbers, strings, and floating point numbers, but you get the gist about these. Now let's discuss about logical operators. Python has 3 main logical operators. So it has an AND, it has an OR, and it has a NOT. Now let's discuss each of them. Well, the AND operator needs that both operands should be true in order for the expression to evaluate as true. Now we can do something like, let's say 2 is smaller than 3 and 5 equals to 5. So 2 is smaller than 3, and this first expression should evaluate to true, whereas 5 equals 5 and the second operand is also true. So true and true equals true. The whole expression evaluates to true. Now let's tweak the above expression a bit, and let's say 3 is smaller than 3. In this case, 3 smaller than 3 renders false, and 5 equals 5 renders true. But false and true renders false, as you can see here. Please remember that both AND operands need to be true in order for the expression to be true. And in case you forget it, you could simply do this in the Python shell. You could simply type true and false equals false. That's pretty cool. Now let's discuss the OR operator. Using OR, unlike when using AND, if at least one of the operands evaluates to true, then the result evaluates to true. Let's see this in practice. And for this, let's start with the above example, and let's use an OR here, and let's test it. And as you can see, this expression evaluates to true because both operators in this case, operands, in this case, are true. But if we take this one and do an OR, because 3 smaller than 3 evaluates to false and 5 equals 5 evaluates to true, you have basically false or true, and this should return true. Well, that's pretty cool. As you can see, both AND and the OR operator are pretty intuitive. Now let's discuss about the NOT operator. This operator is used to inverse, or shall I say negate, the truth of an expression. Now let's see it in practice. Now if we have something like 1 smaller than 3, and in this case it's true. Now if you use the not operator on it, because the main expression evaluates to true, using not in front of the expression will negate its Boolean value. So basically this should return false now, and as you can see it does. You could also write something like not true, just for validation purposes alone. Not true should give us false, and not false should give us true. Right, that's pretty cool. Now another thing to mention is that in Python certain values are considered false. For example, none. If you remember none, like we said in previous tutorials, this reveals the absence of a value. So this is rendered false. Now we can have 0 of any numeric type as false. So 0 as an integer, now 0.0 as a floating point number. Now we can have 0 in capital L as a long number, and we can have 0 and J as a complex number. These are all rendered as false in Python. Afterwards, in terms of strings, we have the empty string. This is also rendered as false. The empty list. Then we have the empty tuple, and afterwards, last but not least, we have the empty dictionary. Don't worry about these for now. We'll study them in depth in future lectures. So please remember that all of these will evaluate to false in Python. Now, Python, because it's such a nice programming language, has the bool function. So, like this. That allows us to test the truthfulness of a variable or expression. For example, if we test none, bool of none, and we give none as an argument between parentheses, this should return false. Now if we test, let's say, the integer 0, this returns false. And last but not least, let's return the truthfulness of a floating point number 0.0, and this returns false. Now you get the idea. You can also use another expression that should return true, and as you can see in this case it does. And let's say another one, 1 is greater than 0, and this returns true. That's pretty cool. That's it for this tutorial, guys. I hope you have enjoyed it. In the next tutorial we'll start discussing about one of the core concepts of Python, and that's the list. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.